Warning, bullishness ahead. You may experience FOMO, fear of missing out. Let's get into it. All right, so guys, whatever the title is of this video, that's what this video is going to be, okay? I've been cooking up how to explain this to people in video format for a while now. I hope you guys are excited because I don't think there's anything more bullish for PulseChain than this video. So if you want to get people excited, you gotta watch this video. It's about this up here. Now, if you've seen my older videos, you remember this whole thing I've done charting and checking out what pools will look like and stuff. So just ignore the stuff on the right. Only pay attention to the stuff that's highlighted on the left here. I'm just going to read it out. Pulse total supply estimation around 40 trillion, 140 trillion, possibly 130 trillion. These are some old numbers. ETH total supply back then was 117 million. Now it's around 120 million. And the supply increase in X is around 1.2 or 1.1 million X versus Ethereum is the Pulse chain total supply. That's what you get if you go between these two numbers. This is 1.196581x times more supply than this. Let's do a little bit of math. At the time, it took 100 ETH to get around 2 million hex on Uniswap. And so the Uniswap ratios on Pulse will be adjusted for 1.2 million X in supply. So it will take 120 million Pulse to get the same 2 million hex on Pulse. Since the average sacrifice price was 1/10,000th of a dollar here, that means for a 120 million Pulse, that would be an investment of a $12,000 value to get that amount of hex. This means you can get the same amount of hex on Pulse for 12,000 that are worth 250,000 on Ethereum, which is a 20x price reduction. Now, since ETH's price has changed since this, it's actually a little bit less now. So it's actually like a 15x price reduction. And these were the old stats from the day when this was taken. So to get about 2 million out of the pool, you needed 250K. But on Pulse Chain, that won't be the case. It'll be much, much, much cheaper. I wanted to get this point across that to become a whale in this ecosystem, way, way, way easier than in the Ethereum ecosystem. So it's at least 15x times easier to become a whale in Pulse, and the PRC20s that are successful on Pulse, it's going to be at least 15x cheaper to get those positions and gain those percentages of total supply of these tokens and Pulse itself. The best way to break it down, I have over here. So we also know that only 10% of basically the supply of Pulse, and same with PulseX, 10% is basically user-owned supply. The rest is owned by the OA who sacrificed billions and billions and billions at the end of the sacrifice phase. It's the same way the hex origin address has a large amount of hex. They've never sold a coin. Any address associated with the sacrifice that is connected kind of to the OA address, we assume that those coins are never going to hit market. And so what the real supply is actually 10x lower than what everybody else, puts out there. So if the total supply is 130 trillion, really there's only 13 trillion coins in the hands of the normal users. And so you actually have a 10x lower supply. What this means is to become a whale in this 10x lower supply, it's actually even easier and cheaper. If you look at this, it's let me just read through here. The supply is 10x smaller, so it's really 10x more of the potentially tradable supply. And so it's actually 10 times 15x easier to become a whale in Pulse versus ETH for the same assets. And I say same in quotes because all of those PRC20s like Hex and all of its derivatives and other coins you like Link and stuff, those are coming to Pulse Chain. And they're the same exact code, and they will work over here on Pulse Chain. If it's real DeFi, it'll come over and it'll work fine. Our ecosystem is all about real DeFi. None of these admin keys like, oh, they didn't turn the front end on, or oh, they didn't do that. And so none of this stuff works. This is real DeFi. Like we have stuff working on testnet for some of this stuff already. And so you can already tell that what some of these projects are actually going to work on Pulse Chain from the get-go. If it's real DeFi, it should just work inherently. And so it's actually 150x, guys, easier to become a shark, dolphin, squid, and whale in the ecosystem because it's just that much cheaper to actually become one of those high percentage owners in the system. An example here, 100 billion Pulse is 0.77% of the user owned supply. So you can become the equivalent of 7.7 sharks, because every 0.1% is a shark, because it's of, but this is talking about the user owned supply, which is 10x less than the total supply, but that's really the only tradable supply possible. And so I think of that as the real supply. To become 7.7 sharks with 100 billion pulse, that would only cost you $10 million. Now, to get 0.77% of Ethereum supply, that would cost you $1.386 billion. And I did that by, 1% of Ethereum total supply is 120,000 ETH. And then this is 0.77% of the ETH total supply, and then times 1500, just a nice round number. And so that's how we got that. And then if you get to for Pulse user supply, it would only cost $10 million to become 7.7 sharks worth. If you get all the way up to 1%, you're a whale. You're a freaking whale. So like $2 or $3 more million, $13 million whale status. Okay. It's 138x cheaper to become a whale in this Pulse chain ecosystem, either with Pulse or the good PRC20s. It's just going to be cheaper to get a huge bag over here when people start bringing in their US dollars. And since we have that floor price, we basically have this, everybody who paid a 10,000th of a dollar for their Pulse, no one is going to lock in this loss, at least at scale. Like maybe someone, okay, they have medical emergency or family emergency, and so they have to sell their initial position that they've been waiting all this time, and when it comes out, they sell. But I don't think the richest players in the ecosystem have to sell their biggest bags at a loss, and so they're more likely to just hold up the price, because they don't want any other whales coming in and getting a better deal than they did. They would just buy up more, right? Because it's so easy to become a huge player in this ecosystem. It's in an ecosystem that's better than Ethereum. It's like backwards, right? Like it shouldn't be easier to get a larger percentage of a better system than Ethereum. Now, we are helping Ethereum by reducing its fees by taking its users, because people can just play with the same stuff over here on Pulse Chain that they had on Ethereum, but for way less gas fees and like way less wait time, like 4x at least, 4x less wait time. Like we have 3-second blocks, they have 13-second blocks. And so we have faster transactions, cheaper, all your stuff's already here. Everyone gets an airdrop from Ethereum, and it's easier to become a large player in this whole ecosystem. Like guys, we're going to see Pulse Chain, PulseX, Hex, all the derivatives that are good, they're going to last for years and years and years and years. Think about the guys who got into Ethereum whenever it was 30 cents and they just held for 6 years. They're like, oh, I'm up 14,000x. This is pretty good. They should have bought more, right? Back then, whenever you could get huge percents of the total supply, back then when it was 30 cents, people should have been aping in. And so I think we're going to have more advanced market participants this time around who understand the importance of owning just large amounts of these supplies, because it is so much cheaper to get it. Like, how hard is it to find $10 million in crypto? I mean, what? Like, they're gonna have to push up the price of Pulse to get some of that, because I'm hoping people aren't willing to sell their Pulse super cheap. Imagine being the guy who sold Ethereum at 30 cents when it came out because he wanted to get his money back. Wrecked in real time. Oh my goodness. 138x cheaper, or 150x depending on, I think, because I did some rounding and stuff, so it reduced the amount of x. Basically, it's 150x cheaper to become a huge player in this ecosystem. On top of this, some things to consider. These are just estimations based on information we have right now. This is not financial or investment advice. I'm not an investment advisor. Now, if you want to see my other awesome video on PulseX, that's actually available pinned in the Telegram group. If you want to check that out, it's t.me/pulse theory. And there's a link to the Discord, and there's a secret video in there that's not posted anywhere else, and it's very, very bullish for PulseX. And it just shows you the power of the buy and burn. And then I'm going to post this likely into a secret location, only available to people on that platform. So we have that floor price, right? Most people aren't going to sell for their each pulse for less than a 10,000th of a dollar, because they're basically locking in a loss. I looked at the Uniswap pools, and you know how USDC is going to be basically not valuable over there, not the copied version, because stable coins that are backed by entities like Circle, where it's a company, if they choose to just not validate those coins or they freeze those coins, then those coins are not going to have any value over on the Pulse chain. What most people are likely to do is dump them, if they can, as soon as possible into those big liquidity pools that are filled with free Pulse from the AMM Fixer bot. That AMM Fixer bot is going to put in trillions, at least $1 trillion, I think. It depends, you know, there are talks about like maybe we put in less liquidity and stuff with the AMM bot, but as it stands and what Richard said previously is that it should mint 2.5% of the total supply of the entire thing. So it should be like several trillion Pulse in the dexes, which I think of as, sure, it's like a lot of Pulse available for sale. I think of it as like the B round of trying to get people's positions in Pulse, to get it almost leaves meat on the bone for new participants to come in, try it out, test the liquidity. Oh, these order books are really thick, actually. Wow, I can actually like withdraw. It's not just an empty chain. There's tons of stuff going on. There's tons of trading. There's tons of liquidity farming on the PulseX DEX with all this bridged in tokens coming in. People pairing that with their ERC20s and backing the value of the things that they got for free. Dude, there's so much stuff happening on Pulse Chain at launch, and getting any of these parts of the I love how Dollar Cost does it with the Thanos glove, the Infinity Gauntlet, the gems. Like, we got Pulse, PulseX, P-Hex, Hex, incentive token, stuff like that. Like, there's so many things coming out, and there's so many things that Richard's building. If you get into any of these things, you're getting into an ecosystem that's new. Like, that's good for price performance. You're getting into something that has more upside potential than Ethereum because it is so new, and you can get a bigger position of it than in the Ethereum ecosystem. I don't want to call it a no-brainer, but wow, it's pretty crazy. You stayed to the end of the video, I'm going to show you a little something extra special, okay? So Richard Hart made this tweet just a day or so ago. When Bitcoin finally does find its bottom, I won't even buy it. I'll buy something better. Richard, I called the top on the day, Hart. What do you guys think he's going to buy with all of that stablecoin? And the copied stablecoin. Remember, all the copied stablecoins are going to be dumped, in my opinion. Why would you keep a stablecoin that isn't stable? It's not backed by anything. It's going to get dumped, right? Now, the ones that are from ETH that get bridged over, those should still hold their peg because they're redeemable once you move them back to the ETH chain. So those are like real USD value when that comes over. Same with Ethereum assets that get bridged over. That's another way to exit from Pulse Chain to ETH by trading for those ETH assets that are wrapped in. And then you're able to move that back to the Ethereum chain. And then you can actually send that potentially to your exchange and go to your fiat off ramp. And then you can sell it and get back to your bank. That's kind of how you can get back to real dollars. And this is also why we have this couple days of just ratio trading and no bridges, is because we need to lock in that it was a day or two of no USD value, because you couldn't technically get any USD value. And so since everybody has no USD value at the start, you have no tax, because if it was given to you and it was like a starting price is just, you know, say 10,000th of a dollar, then you would technically have been given that as a dollar amount, and so you could actually be taxed on that. But since you're given something with zero value, you don't pay tax on zero value, and then when it appreciates, you only pay tax whenever you sell. Capital gains tax. It's just like if you buy a house, you don't pay tax on it as it appreciates until you sell it. So I did some math. With 165 million of like USDC, you would be able to get 50 billion Pulse, which is, if we saw earlier, 100 billion Pulse is 0.77% of user-owned supply. And so 50 billion would be half of that, 0.37 something percent, just as a free airdrop. If you're a huge whale and you're like, I've got $165 million in USDC, you can basically get multiple sharks worth of free airdrop in Pulse from these pools from the AMM bot, filling it up with so much Pulse. We're gonna have all these people coming in and getting real money back, like from these. This is like it's literally the world's largest airdrop. It's not gonna be like, I think there's actually gonna be liquidity for people to exit through if they just want to get in and get out and get their stuff. See ya on day one. Like, people who left ETH day one got wrecked. I think it's gonna be the same way for Pulse, because I remember people talking way back when Pulse Chain was like announced that, oh, it's just gonna be people take their freaking airdrop and then they just sell it in and leave. That's their plan. It's like, dude, you understand what we're building? We're building like real DeFi out, and it's vertically integrated, and they all work in synergy together to pump each other. It's an amazing system. I can't wait for it to launch. And that's that they just do a market buy of Pulse with their copied over USDC during the ratio days, they'll be able to get 50 billion Pulse basically out of that. They just like market dumped. And I'm talking about the OA, who has, at one point, they had over $600 million in stables from those sacrifice addresses, those 2 sacrifices. They have enough to drain a bunch of what the AMM bot has to mint, so they could be buying up the Pulse price, basically. They might even just end up also later bridging in their really EUSDC or EDI and bring that in and just buy up Pulse supply, because why not? Why not make it more rare and harder for people to afford to get a large percentage? You don't want malicious whales coming in who will come in to manipulate the price and do a bunch of suppression, pushing the price down, and then they're trying to like control the market. Well, I'd much rather someone related to the OA or an address related to the original hex origin address who has never sold a coin. I want that one buying up the supply, because it's almost similar to buy and burn, except that it is owned by an entity that could potentially sell in the future, but they've shown to be benevolent and they just do not, because they don't need to. They just keep building more and more stuff. Now, my theory on all this is actually, because people wonder, well, how does this OA character or person make money if they never sell? And what's funny is, if you see these sacrifices, they're getting tons and tons of stable for each project that gets released. So with Hex, it was Ethereum. People would put it into the adoption amplifier, and that would pay for creating Hex, because it was a great product that was actual DeFi, which actually solved a problem of people trying to get yield and getting wrecked by middlemen and fees and just rent-seeking people. Well, now it's you are the network. You mint your own rewards. No one can take it from you. It's your money. That's what Hex solved. On top of that, with PulseChain and pulsex sacrifice, people are sacrificing. Basically, they're taking profits, usually, and then we take profits for this entity, and we are gladly giving them our hard-earned gains, and then they can take those gains and they can do whatever they want with it. Maybe they'll build more awesome stuff with the funds they get. I think of it as like a decentralized business. So we can choose to buy the next thing that this creator creates, and then they get all of these funds. We're actually able to fund it because we want the products that this OA is creating. That's kind of my theory on how it's sustainable, or getting loans against certain amounts of it or something like that. We sell the profit and then we give it back voluntarily to this entity who just keeps creating awesome DeFi that helps the world in general. Everyone's making mad gains. Everyone's more secure. We're using stuff without admin keys. We're using crypto how it was meant to be used. Just you, only you have control, your money, you do what you want, and you can choose to buy the next thing that may go up thousands of X. That's up to you. You can sacrifice for that stuff. Maybe there'll be a new sacrifice for the wallet coin whenever that comes out. We would like a super high-tech, way easier to use, way better interface wallet. So there may be a coin involved with that in the future coming out of the Richard Heart ecosystem. So stay tuned for that. This is my super bullish PulseChain video. 150x cheaper to become a whale in this ecosystem. Bet you didn't know that, but you never heard those numbers. One last thing, shout out to BPK Das Bomb. That guy's super awesome. This was an awesome spreadsheet created by BPK Das Bomb, and also I think another guy also worked on it. I forget where they put it. But anyway, thank you guys so much for making these awesome spreadsheet tables. If anyone else in the community has made like awesome spreadsheet tables showing some cool stuff and you want to share it, I can make videos on it, that'd be great. I just need enough data that I can reason with it to make good, entertaining videos that explain things for people. Check the description for extra special deals. Sometimes there's new stuff down there, limited time stuff, get special discounts, get months free for certain things, or discounts that you can't get anywhere else. There's more cool stuff coming out. Check out the other socials. There's sometimes secret stuff that's only posted to certain socials that I don't post on my YouTube, like some certain interviews I just don't post on my YouTube, but I was on them. And so you might only find them on Reddit. You might only find them on the Facebook group, some stuff on TikTok, some stuff on Instagram. It's only posted there. So follow me on all those. It's K4Kid Crypto on all of them. You can always check my link tree in Twitter. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace out.